The crack of the gavel against wood silenced the crowd as Joanna Thorne stood on the auction block, her hands protectively cradling her swollen belly. At nearly 8 months pregnant, she felt the eyes of the crowd boring into her, assessing her value despite, or perhaps because of her condition. She stared at the dusty ground of Cherry Creek, Colorado, refusing to meet the gazes of potential buyers in the spring of 1875. Next up, a woman of 20 summers, healthy enough despite her condition, the auctioneer announced, his voice carrying over the murmurs of the crowd. Sold by her creditor after her husband's debts came due. Starting bid is $30. Joanna's jaw tightened. Her late husband, Thomas, had left her with nothing but debt and an unborn child after he'd gotten himself killed in a bar fight 3 months ago. When the bank had come for their small farm outside town, she'd had nowhere to go. The creditors had found a way to take even her freedom. $30, called a gruff voice from the back of the crowd. 35, another man countered. Joanna felt the baby kick, as if sensing her distress. She'd heard of pregnant women being bought cheap, only to be worked to death after giving birth. Others were purchased for their babies alone, infants sold separately once born. The thought made her blood run cold. $50, a new voice cut through the bidding. The crowd parted slightly, revealing a tall man with sun-weathered skin and serious eyes. His dark blonde hair was partially concealed beneath a wide-brimmed hat, and his clothing, while dusty from the trail, was of good quality. $50 from Mr. Archer. Folks, the auctioneer said with some surprise. Do I hear 55? The crowd muttered, but no higher bid came. A woman in her condition wasn't worth much as a worker, and most of the men bidding had been looking for a cheap deal, not willing to pay a fair price. Sold to Mr. Archer for $50, the auctioneer declared, bringing down his gavel once more. Joanna was led off the block by a deputy who brought her to stand before her new owner. Up close, she could see that the man called Archer was younger than she'd initially thought, perhaps 30 or so, with clear blue eyes that assessed her without leering. Adam Xanthos, he introduced himself quietly, offering a brief nod. I have a wagon outside. The deputy handed over her contract and receipt of purchase. She's all yours now, Xanthos. Reckon you got yourself a bargain. Adam's expression remained neutral as he pocketed the papers. Madam, if you'll follow me. Joanna had no choice but to follow him through the crowd and toward a sturdy wagon hitched to 2 healthy-looking horses. He offered his hand to help her climb up, which she ignored, struggling up onto the seat by herself, despite her unwieldy body. Adam climbed up beside her without comment and took the reins. Where are you taking me? Joanna finally asked as they left the town behind, her voice rough from disuse. My ranch, he replied, keeping his eyes on the road ahead. About 3 hours west of here. And what do you expect of me? She asked bluntly, one hand still protectively covering her belly. Adam glanced at her then, his expression unreadable. Nothing you're not willing to give, madam. But I have a proposition for you. Joanna tensed, waiting for the inevitable proposition that men always seem to have for women in vulnerable positions. I'm offering you my name, he said simply. Your... what? Joanna blinked in surprise. My name, marriage. He cleared his throat. It would give you and your child protection. No one would question your presence at my ranch or your child's legitimacy. Joanna stared at him, suspicious. Why would you do that for a stranger? Adam was quiet for a moment, flicking the reins gently to urge the horses around a bend in the road. Because no child should come into this world without protection, and no mother should have to face it alone if there's another way. You don't know anything about me, Joanna protested. I know enough, he responded. I know you need help, and I have the means to provide it. The marriage would be in name only, if that's your concern. Joanna narrowed her eyes. And what do you get out of this arrangement, Mr. Xanthos? A shadow passed over his face. Companionship, perhaps, someone to share meals with. And he hesitated. The neighbors have been wondering why a man my age hasn't settled down. This would put an end to their matchmaking efforts. It sounded too good to be true. There must be more to it than that. There isn't, he insisted. I'm not looking to take advantage of you, Mrs. Thorne. You're free to refuse. Either way, I won't return you to that auction block. The horses plodded steadily westward as Joanna considered her options. She had none, really. A pregnant widow with no family, no home, and no money couldn't afford to be choosy. If this stranger was offering marriage instead of servitude, it was more than she could have hoped for. "How do I know you're a man of your word?" she asked finally. "You don't," Adam admitted, "but I've never given it lightly, and I've never broken it once given." They rode in silence for another mile before Joanna spoke again. "Very well, Mr. Xanthos, I accept your proposal." Adam nodded once, his shoulders relaxing almost imperceptibly. "We can stop at Reverend Porter's place. It's on the way to the ranch. He can perform the ceremony today if you're willing." "Today?" Joanna's eyebrows rose. "You're certainly not wasting any time." "Time is something you don't have much of," Adam replied, nodding toward her belly. "Better to have everything settled before the baby comes." He was right, of course. Joanna sighed and nodded her agreement. They stopped for a brief meal at a small roadside inn, where Adam ensured she ate a hearty portion of stew and bread. The proprietress eyed Joanna's condition and Adam's reserved demeanor with curiosity, but said nothing. The Reverend Porter's house was a modest structure attached to a small white church. The Reverend himself was a portly man with kind eyes who seemed unsurprised by their arrival. "Adam," he greeted warmly. "Mrs. Thorne, Adam sent word ahead that you might be stopping by today." Joanna shot Adam a surprised look. He'd been that confident she would accept? "I sent word that I might be bringing a guest," Adam clarified. "I made no presumptions about your answer." The ceremony was brief and businesslike. Joanna stood in her dusty dress, her pregnancy prominently displayed, and repeated the vows in a steady voice. Adam's responses were equally measured. When the Reverend pronounced them man and wife, there was no kiss, merely a formal handshake between them. "I've prepared the marriage certificate," Reverend Porter said, presenting them with a document. "I've backdated it by 5 months, as requested." Joanna's eyes widened. "You what?" Adam met her gaze steadily. "To protect your child from any questions about legitimacy. If we were married before your husband's passing—" "He wasn't my husband yet," Joanna said with sudden understanding. The certificate would make it appear that she and Adam had been married before she became pregnant, erasing any stigma from her child. "It's not strictly honest," Adam admitted, "but it's kinder to the child." Joanna nodded slowly. It was a kindness she hadn't expected. They continued their journey as the afternoon lengthened into evening. Joanna fought exhaustion as the wagon jolted along the trail, her back aching from the uncomfortable seat and her condition. "Not much further now," Adam assured her as they turned onto a narrower trail. "You can see the chimney smoke just over that rise." As they crested the hill, Joanna caught her first glimpse of what was now to be her home. The ranch was larger than she had expected, a substantial 2-story house with a wide porch, several outbuildings and corrals holding horses and cattle. A barn stood to one side, and a bunkhouse was visible beyond it. Smoke curled from the main house's chimney, suggesting someone was already there. "You have hands?" Joanna asked, surprised. "3 full-time, plus a cook who comes in daily," Adam explained. "Rose will have prepared a room for you." The wagon pulled up to the front of the house, and a middle-aged woman with silver-streaked black hair emerged onto the porch. "You're back earlier than expected, Mr. Xanthos," she called. Then her eyes fell on Joanna, widening slightly at her condition. "And you've brought company." "Rose, this is Mrs. Joanna Xanthos," Adam said, climbing down from the wagon. "My wife." Rose's mouth opened in surprise, but she recovered quickly. "Your wife. Well, welcome to Ponderosa Ridge, Mrs. Xanthos. Let me help you inside." Adam assisted Joanna down from the wagon, his hands strong and steady at her waist. The contact, brief as it was, sent an unexpected flutter through her chest. "Thank you," she murmured, immediately stepping away once her feet touched the ground. The interior of the house was surprisingly comfortable, well furnished with sturdy, practical pieces and touches of elegance in the form of embroidered cushions and a few paintings. It was clean and warm, with a fire crackling in the hearth. "I've prepared the blue room," Rose informed Adam, "though, had I known you were bringing a wife home, I might have opened up the master suite properly." "The blue room will be fine for tonight," Adam replied. "We can make further arrangements tomorrow." Rose showed Joanna upstairs to a pleasant bedroom decorated in shades of blue and cream. A large window overlooked the ranch, and the bed looked soft and inviting after her ordeal. "There's a washroom through that door," Rose explained. "I'll bring up some hot water for you to freshen up. You must be exhausted, especially in your condition." She hesitated. "If you don't mind my asking, when is the baby due?" "About a month from now," Joanna replied, sinking gratefully onto the edge of the bed. Rose nodded. "I'll be sure to have everything ready." Mr. Xanthos didn't mention he was courting, let alone that his wife was expecting. Joanna tensed, unsure how to respond to this implied question. "It happened rather quickly," she said vaguely. "Love often does," Rose replied with a knowing smile that made Joanna uncomfortable. "I'll fetch that water now." After Rose left, Joanna explored the room, running her fingers over the polished furniture. The wardrobe stood empty, a stark reminder that she possessed nothing but the clothes on her back. A soft knock on the door preceded Adam's entrance. He carried a small bundle in his arms. "Some necessities," he explained, setting the bundle on the bed. "Night clothes, a hairbrush, soap. Rose will take you into town next week to purchase proper clothing." "Thank you," Joanna said stiffly. "You're being very generous." Adam shook his head. "It's what any husband would provide for his wife." The word husband hung in the air between them, foreign and uncomfortable. "I'll leave you to rest," Adam said after a moment. "Supper will be ready in an hour, but if you prefer to eat in your room tonight, Rose can bring a tray up." "I'll come down," Joanna decided. Despite her exhaustion, she needed to understand more about this man and the household she had just joined. Adam nodded. "Until then." He turned to go, but paused at the door. "I meant what I said earlier. This arrangement will be whatever you wish it to be. I won't make demands of you that you're unwilling to meet." With that, he left, closing the door softly behind him. Joanna sat heavily on the bed, overwhelmed by the day's events. That morning, she had been facing the auction block with nothing but fear and uncertainty ahead. Now, she was married to a stranger, in a comfortable home, with her child's future suddenly more secure. But the question remained, what did Adam Xanthos truly want from her? Supper was a quiet affair. Adam sat at the head of the table, with Joanna to his right. Rose served a hearty meal of roast beef, potatoes, and fresh bread, then ate with them, filling the silence with chatter about local happenings. Mrs. Devereaux's youngest got himself engaged to the schoolteacher, Rose informed them. Caused quite a stir, as the Devereaux were hoping for a more advantageous match. And old Mr. Harker's prize bull took blue ribbon at the county fair last week. Adam contributed occasional comments or questions, but his attention seemed focused on ensuring Joanna ate well. He subtly pushed the breadbasket closer to her, added an extra portion of vegetables to her plate when Rose wasn't looking. "You need to keep up your strength," he said quietly when she raised an eyebrow at him. After dinner, Rose cleared the table, while Adam showed Joanna to the parlor. "I usually read in the evenings," he explained, gesturing to a bookshelf filled with volumes. "You're welcome to any of the books." "Thank you," Joanna said, scanning the titles. She selected a novel and settled into a comfortable armchair, grateful for the distraction. They read in companionable silence until Rose brought in tea and announced she was leaving for the night. "I'll be back at dawn to prepare breakfast," she told them. "Good night, Mr. and Mrs. Xanthos." When they were alone, Adam set his book aside. "I owe you an explanation," he said. Joanna closed her book, giving him her full attention. "I was in town on business when I saw you on that auction block," he began. "The look in your eyes, you were scared but defiant. Reminded me of someone I once knew." He paused, seeming to gather his thoughts. "My sister was in a similar situation years ago. Widowed, expecting, no family to turn to. I was too young to help her then. She and the baby didn't survive the winter." Joanna's breath caught. "I'm sorry." Adam nodded once, acknowledging her sympathy. "When I saw you today, it felt like a chance to do what I couldn't do for her." "So, this is about guilt?" Joanna asked, trying to understand. "Partly," Adam admitted, "but it's also about doing what's right. This arrangement benefits us both. You get security for yourself and your child. I get—" He hesitated. "What do you get?" Joanna pressed. "A family," he said simply. "Or at least the appearance of one. I'm 32 years old, Mrs. Xanthos. I've built this ranch from nothing, made it successful. But success means little when there's no one to share it with." You could have found a wife the traditional way, Joanna pointed out. Adam smiled slightly. I'm not particularly skilled at courtship, and the women in these parts are looking for a romantic figure, not a practical rancher who spends more time with his cattle than in town. So instead you bought yourself a ready-made family, Joanna said, unable to keep a hint of bitterness from her voice. I offered you a choice, Adam corrected gently. You could have refused. Joanna sighed, rubbing her belly as the baby shifted restlessly. Not much of a choice, considering the alternatives. Few of us get ideal choices in this life, Adam replied. We make the best decisions we can with what's available to us. A sharp pain suddenly shot through Joanna's abdomen, causing her to gasp and double over slightly. Adam was at her side instantly, concern etched on his features. What is it? The baby? Just a strong kick, Joanna assured him, though the pain had been more intense than usual. The little one has been restless today. Adam hesitated, then asked, May I? Joanna looked up at him in surprise, then nodded slowly. With gentle care, Adam placed his hand on her rounded belly. After a moment, the baby kicked against his palm, and a smile, the first genuine smile she'd seen from him, spread across his face. Strong, he commented, his voice thick with an emotion Joanna couldn't identify. The moment was broken when the baby kicked again, causing another sharp pain that made Joanna wince. You should rest, Adam said, withdrawing his hand. It's been a long day. He helped her to her feet and escorted her upstairs to the blue room. At the door, he paused. Good night, Mrs. Xanthos, he said formally. Joanna, she corrected him, if we're to be husband and wife, even just for appearance's sake, you should use my given name. Adam nodded. Good night, Joanna. My room is just down the hall if you need anything. Good night, Adam, she replied, the name feeling strange on her lips. As she prepared for bed in the unfamiliar room, Joanna tried to make sense of her new situation. Adam Xanthos was unlike any man she'd ever met, honorable in a way that seemed almost antiquated, yet practical to his core. He'd rescued her from a terrible fate, yet she couldn't shake the feeling that she was missing something important about him and his motivations. The baby kicked again, harder this time, as if in agreement with her troubled thoughts. Hush now, she murmured, stroking her belly. We're safe for tonight at least. That's more than we had this morning. With that small comfort, she blew out the lamp and surrendered to exhaustion. Joanna woke before dawn, disoriented by the unfamiliar surroundings. For a moment, she thought she was back in the holding cell where she'd spent the previous night before the auction. Then, reality returned. She was in Adam Xanthos' ranch house, legally his wife, at least on paper. She rose carefully, her back aching from the weight of her pregnancy. After washing and dressing in yesterday's clothes, she made her way downstairs, following the scent of coffee and bacon. Rose was already in the kitchen, bustling around the stove. Good morning, Mrs. Xanthos. You're up early. Please, call me Joanna, she replied, lowering herself carefully onto a chair at the kitchen table. I'm used to early mornings. Coffee? Rose offered, already pouring a cup. Just half, please, Joanna accepted. The baby doesn't seem to care for it much these days. Rose smiled sympathetically. My second one was like that. Couldn't stand the smell of coffee my whole last month. Nearly drove my husband to distraction since he couldn't have his morning cup in the house. You have children? Joanna asked, grateful for the conversation. 3 grown ones, 2 boys and a girl, all with families of their own now. Rose placed a plate of eggs and bacon before Joanna. My Henry passed 5 years ago. I started working for Mr. Xanthos Adam 3 years back when he advertised for a cook and housekeeper. He seems kind, Joanna ventured, trying to learn more about her new husband. The best of men, Rose confirmed, turning back to the stove. Fair to his workers, generous to those in need, never raises his voice, not even when things go wrong. And things do go wrong on a ranch this size. The back door opened and Adam entered, bringing with him the scent of early morning air and horses. He'd clearly been up for hours, his shirt sleeves rolled up and a light sheen of sweat on his brow despite the cool morning. Morning, he greeted them both, hanging his hat on a peg by the door. His eyes lingered on Joanna. Did you sleep well? Well enough, she answered. The baby was restless. Adam nodded, accepting the coffee Rose handed him. I've spoken to the Hands about our new arrangement. They won't pry, but they'll show you the respect due as my wife." "Thank you," Joanna said, unsure what else to add. "I've also sent Jack into town with a letter for Dr. Mitchell, asking him to call on us next week to check on your condition." Joanna tensed. "Is that necessary?" "I've been managing on my own." "It's necessary," Adam replied firmly. "This far from town, we need to be prepared. The doctor should know about you before there's an emergency." His practical concern was difficult to argue with, so Joanna merely nodded and returned to her breakfast. "Rose will show you around the house today," Adam continued. "You should rest as much as possible, but I thought you might like to know your way around your new home." "I would," Joanna agreed, "and I'd like to make myself useful, if I can." Adam exchanged a glance with Rose. "There's no need to exert yourself in your condition." "I'm pregnant, not invalid," Joanna said with a hint of irritation. "I've been working up until yesterday." "And now you don't have to," Adam pointed out. He finished his coffee in one long swallow and stood. "I need to check the north pasture today. I'll be back for supper." After he left, Rose chuckled. "He means well, but men never do understand these things, do they? Come on, I'll show you the house, and you can decide for yourself what you feel up to doing." The house tour revealed more about Adam than Joanna had learned from their conversations. His office was meticulously organized, with careful ledgers detailing the ranch's operations and finances. The parlor contained not just books, but also a chess set, suggesting he occasionally had visitors. The master bedroom, which Rose showed her last, was spacious but sparsely decorated, as if Adam spent little time there. "This would rightfully be your room now," Rose commented, "as the mistress of the house." Joanna flushed. "I'm comfortable in the blue room for now." Rose gave her a knowing look. "Marriage takes time to settle, especially when it happens quick as yours did. No rush on these things." Throughout the day, Joanna found small ways to contribute: folding laundry, shelling peas for dinner, arranging wildflowers in a vase for the dining table. These simple tasks helped her feel less like a charity case and more like she belonged, even if temporarily. The evening brought another quiet meal with Adam, who seemed tired but satisfied with his day's work. He described some of the ranch operations to her, answering her questions patiently. "How many acres do you have?" Joanna asked. 640, Adam replied. "A full section. It's modest compared to some spreads, but it's good land with reliable water." "You've done well for yourself," Joanna observed. Adam shrugged. "I was fortunate. Came west at the right time, worked for the right people, learned the business before striking out on my own." "No family back east?" A shadow crossed his face. "None living." Joanna wanted to ask more, but sensed his reluctance to discuss the subject. After dinner, they again retreated to the parlor, where Adam surprised her by asking, "Would you care for a game of chess?" Joanna hesitated. "I know the basic moves, but I've never played much." "I'll teach you properly," Adam offered. "It passes the time pleasantly." They set up the board, and Adam patiently explained strategies as they played. Joanna found herself enjoying the mental challenge. A welcome distraction from her physical discomfort and uncertain future. "You're a natural," Adam commented when she executed a particularly clever move. "You think several steps ahead." "When you've had to survive on your own, thinking ahead becomes second nature," Joanna replied. Adam studied her across the board. "Tell me about yourself, Joanna. Where did you grow up?" She considered deflecting the question, but decided honesty was the fairest approach given all he'd done for her. "Pennsylvania originally. My father was a blacksmith in a small town near Pittsburgh's. When he died of pneumonia, my mother took in washing to support us. She worked herself to death by the time I was 16. Joanna moved a pawn. I came west with a family I was working for as a nursemaid. Met Thomas in Denver 2 years ago. He was charming, full of big dreams about striking it rich. And instead, he left you with debts," Adam concluded. Joanna nodded. "He wasn't a bad man, just reckless. Always sure the next big opportunity was just around the corner. The small farm we had outside Cherry Creek was mortgaged to the hilt to fund his latest venture, a stake in a silver mine that turned out worthless." "I'm sorry," Adam said quietly. Joanna looked up, surprised by the genuine sympathy in his voice. "Life happens as it will. We make our choices and live with the consequences." "Some consequences seem disproportionate to the choices," Adam observed. Their game continued in companionable silence for a while, until a sharp pain made Joanna gasp and clutch her belly. Adam was immediately alert. "What's wrong?" "Nothing," Joanna assured him, though her face had paled. "The baby is just very active tonight." Adam frowned, unconvinced. "Perhaps you should retire early." Joanna nodded, suddenly exhausted. "Perhaps I should." He helped her up and escorted her to the stairs. "If you need anything in the night, don't hesitate to call for me." "Thank you," Joanna said, touched by his concern. "Good night, Adam." "Good night, Joanna." In her room, Joanna prepared for bed slowly, her mind full of conflicting thoughts. Adam Xanthos was becoming less of a mystery with each passing hour, yet in some ways more puzzling. His kindness seemed genuine, his concern for her welfare sincere, yet there was a sadness about him, a distance he maintained even in their most comfortable moments together. As she lay in bed, another pain gripped her, stronger than before. Joanna breathed through it, counting the seconds until it passed. When a third pain came 15 minutes later, she began to worry. It was too early for the baby to come, at least 3 weeks too early. She tried to sleep, but the pains continued intermittently, not strong enough to be true labor, but concerning nonetheless. By midnight, a new symptom appeared, a dampness between her legs that she recognized with alarm as blood. Fear gripped her. Something was wrong. She needed help. Forcing herself to remain calm, Joanna made her way to the door and into the hallway. Adam's room was at the end of the corridor, the door slightly ajar. She hesitated. Then another sharp pain decided for her. "Adam!" she called, knocking on his door. "Adam, please, something's wrong." There was an immediate response, the sound of movement. Then Adam appeared in the doorway, hastily pulling on a shirt. "What is it?" he asked, his eyes quickly assessing her pale face and the way she clutched her belly. "Pain," Joanna managed, "and blood." Adam's expression tightened with concern. "Let me get you back to bed. I'll wake Rose and send for the doctor." He supported her back to her room, his arm strong around her waist. Once she was settled on the bed, he moved with surprising efficiency, lighting lamps and helping her position pillows behind her back. "I'll be right back," he promised. "Try to stay calm." Joanna nodded, fighting another wave of pain. She heard Adam's rapid footsteps down the hall, then down the stairs. Minutes later, there was commotion below, voices, the sound of the back door opening and closing, boots on the porch. Rose appeared in the doorway, her hair in a hasty braid, wearing a hastily donned dress. "Oh, my dear," she said, hurrying to Joanna's side. "Adam sent Jack for the doctor, but it'll be at least 2 hours before he can get here." "The baby's coming, isn't it?" Joanna asked, already knowing the answer. Rose checked her quickly, then nodded grimly. "And sooner rather than later. But don't you worry, I've helped deliver plenty of babies in my time. We'll manage until the doctor arrives." Adam appeared in the doorway, his face drawn with concern. "What do you need?" "Hot water, clean towels, and the medical supplies from the pantry cabinet," Rose instructed. "And some whiskey, both for her and for cleaning our hands." Adam nodded and disappeared again. The next hours passed in a blur of pain for Joanna. Rose proved herself capable and reassuring, her experienced hands checking the baby's position and monitoring Joanna's condition. "The bleeding has slowed," she reported at one point. "That's good, but this little one is in a hurry." Adam remained nearby, bringing whatever Rose requested and occasionally offering Joanna sips of water or wiping her brow with a cool cloth. His calm presence was surprisingly comforting. As dawn approached, Joanna's pains increased in intensity and frequency. "It's time to push with the next one," Rose instructed, positioning herself at the foot of the bed. "Adam, support her back." Adam moved behind Joanna without hesitation, letting her lean against his chest and grip his hands as the contraction built. "Push now," Rose directed. Joanna bore down with all her strength, a cry escaping her lips, despite her attempt to remain stoic. "You're doing well," Adam murmured near her ear. "You're strong, Joanna, stronger than you know." His words gave her courage. When the next contraction came, she pushed again, drawing strength from his solid presence behind her. "I can see the head," Rose announced. "One more good push should do it." Joanna gathered her remaining strength for one final effort. The pain was overwhelming, but Adam's hands held hers firmly, his voice a steady encouragement in her ear. With a final push and a cry that seemed torn from her very soul, Joanna felt the baby slide from her body. There was a moment of terrible silence, then the most beautiful sound she'd ever heard, a lusty newborn wail. "A boy!" Rose declared triumphantly, quickly cleaning the tiny red face. A fine, strong boy. Tears streamed down Joanna's cheeks as Rose placed the squalling infant on her chest. He was smaller than she'd expected, but perfect 10 fingers, 10 toes, a shock of dark hair, and lungs that clearly worked exceptionally well. "Hello, little one," she whispered, overwhelmed by the rush of love that flooded her. "You're early, but you're here." Adam still sat behind her, his arms now encircling both her and the baby. Joanna felt him trembling slightly and turned to see tears in his eyes as well. "He's beautiful," Adam said hoarsely. "Perfect." Their eyes met over the baby's head, and something shifted between them, a connection forged in this moment of creation and wonder. The sound of horses outside broke the spell. Moments later, footsteps pounded up the stairs, and Dr. Mitchell burst into the room, his medical bag in hand and his clothes disheveled from the urgent ride. "Seems I'm a bit late to the party," he observed, taking in the scene, "but I'll check mother and child all the same." Adam reluctantly moved away, allowing the doctor access. Dr. Mitchell examined both Joanna and the baby with professional efficiency. "The little fellow is small but healthy," he declared. "Good color, strong heartbeat. And you, Mrs. Xanthos, have come through remarkably well, though you'll need plenty of rest in the coming days." "Thank you for coming, doctor," Joanna said wearily. "I'm just glad everything turned out well," the doctor replied, packing away his instruments. "Early babies can be troublesome, but this one seems determined to thrive." After the doctor left, Rose helped Joanna clean up and change into a fresh nightgown, while Adam waited in the hallway. When they called him back in, he approached almost shyly. "Would you like to hold him?" Joanna offered. Adam looked startled, then nodded. With extreme care, he took the bundled infant in his arms, cradling him as if he were made of the most delicate glass. "He needs a name," Adam said softly, gazing down at the baby. Joanna hesitated. She had considered several names during her pregnancy, but had never settled on one. "What do you think?" Adam looked surprised at being consulted. It should be your choice." "You're his father now, in the eyes of the law," Joanna pointed out. "You should have some say in his name." Adam considered this, his eyes never leaving the baby's face. "My father's name was James," he said finally. "A good, strong name." "James," Joanna repeated, testing it. "James Xanthos. I like it." "James Thomas Xanthos," Adam suggested, "to honor his birth father as well." Joanna's eyes filled with tears at this unexpected gesture. "Thank you," she whispered. "That's very generous." Adam placed little James back in her arms. "You should rest now. I'll have Rose bring you some broth later." As he turned to go, Joanna called after him. "Adam?" He paused at the door. "Yes? Thank you." "For everything?" Adam's expression softened. "You've given me a family, Joanna. I'm the one who should be thanking you." With that, he left her to rest, closing the door quietly behind him. The following days settled into a new rhythm as Joanna recovered and learned to care for little James. Rose was invaluable, showing her how to bathe the tiny infant and offering advice on feeding and soothing him. Adam kept his distance, seemingly uncertain of his place in this new family arrangement, but he visited the nursery several times daily to check on them. He brought small gifts, a hand-carved wooden rattle, a soft blanket he'd purchased in town, a tiny pair of moccasins made by one of the ranch hand's Ute wife. A week after James's birth, Joanna felt strong enough to venture downstairs. She found Adam in his office, going over ledgers. "You're up," he said, rising immediately when she appeared in the doorway, with James cradled against her shoulder. "Should you be walking around already?" "I'm fine," Joanna assured him. "I needed to move about a bit, and James wanted to see more of his home." Adam smiled at that. "Well, if the young man is curious, we shouldn't disappoint him." He offered his arm, and Joanna took it, allowing him to guide her through the house and onto the front porch, where a rocking chair had mysteriously appeared the day before. "I thought you might enjoy sitting out here sometimes," Adam explained as he helped her settle into it. The view of the mountains is particularly fine in the late afternoon. Joanna eased into the chair, adjusting James in her arms. It's perfect, thank you. Adam leaned against the porch railing, watching them. How are you feeling? Truly? Tired, Joanna admitted. But better every day. James is a good baby. He only wakes twice in the night. I've heard him, Adam said. I'm a light sleeper. Joanna studied him. You look tired yourself. Are you working too hard? Adam shrugged. Spring is always busy on a ranch, calving season, fence repairs after the winter, preparing for summer grazing. Is there anything I can do to help? Joanna offered. Once I'm stronger, of course. Adam seemed surprised by the offer. You don't need to concern yourself with ranch business. I want to earn my keep, Joanna insisted. I can't just sit in the house all day once I've recovered. You're caring for James, that's contribution enough. And when he's napping, or when he's a bit older, Joanna challenged. I'm not afraid of work, Adam. I never have been. Adam considered her for a long moment. The books, perhaps. I've never had much patience for the ledgers and correspondence. If you've a head for figures, I kept all the accounts for our farm, Joanna told him. I can certainly manage your books. Something like relief crossed Adam's face. That would be helpful, thank you. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the sun begin its descent toward the mountains. James slept peacefully in Joanna's arms, his tiny hand curled around her finger. I spoke with Reverend Porter yesterday, Adam said eventually. He's announced our marriage to the congregation. There will likely be visitors in the coming weeks, neighbors curious about my new wife. Joanna tensed. What will we tell them about James, about how quickly he arrived after our supposed marriage? The truth, or a version of it, Adam suggested, that we married quickly when we discovered you were with child. It's not so uncommon, especially out here where practical considerations often outweigh social niceties. They'll assume you're James's father, Joanna pointed out. Let them assume what they will, Adam replied. James bears my name now. That's all anyone needs to know. Joanna studied him, wondering again at this man who had so unexpectedly become her husband and her child's protector. You're an unusual man, Adam Xanthos. A faint smile touched his lips. So, I've been told. The first visitors arrived the following Sunday, the Devereaux, whose son had recently become engaged to the schoolteacher. Mrs. Devereaux was a plump, cheerful woman who brought a basket of preserves and hand-knitted baby clothes. Her husband was more reserved but cordial, congratulating Adam on his marriage and the birth of his son. Such a blessing, Mrs. Devereaux declared, cooing over James. And look at those dark curls just like his father's. Joanna caught Adam's eye across the parlor and saw his barely concealed amusement. James's dark hair was nothing like Adam's sandy blonde, but neither of them corrected the assumption. Other visitors followed throughout the week, the Harkers with their prize-winning bull, the Wilsons from the neighboring ranch to the east, and even Sheriff Collins, who claimed to be just passing by, but clearly came to satisfy his curiosity about Adam Xanthos' sudden marriage. To Joanna's surprise, Adam handled the social calls with grace, neither confirming nor denying the assumptions people made about their rapid marriage and James's early arrival. He simply introduced Joanna as his wife, James as his son, and let people draw their own conclusions. As the weeks passed, Joanna gradually took on more responsibilities around the ranch. She began helping with the books as she'd offered, discovering that Adam's business was even more successful than she'd realized. She also started learning about the operations of the ranch itself, showing a natural aptitude that impressed both Adam and his hands. One evening in late summer, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset while James slept inside, Adam brought up a subject they'd both been avoiding. We need to discuss our arrangement, he said, his voice carefully neutral. Joanna's heart skipped a beat. What about it? It's been nearly 4 months, Adam observed. James is thriving. You've recovered your strength. The neighbors have accepted you as my wife without question. Yes, Joanna agreed cautiously, uncertain where he was heading. Adam turned to face her directly. When I offered you marriage, I said it would be in name only, for your protection and James's. I've kept that promise. You have, Joanna acknowledged. Adam had been the perfect gentleman, maintaining a respectful distance despite their legal relationship. I find myself wondering. Adam hesitated, uncharacteristically uncertain. I wonder if you might consider making this a true marriage. Joanna's breath caught. What are you saying? Adam reached for her hand, his touch gentle but hesitant. I'm saying that I've come to care for you, Joanna, more than I expected to, more than I thought possible. Adam, please let me finish, he said quickly. I know this isn't the romantic courtship you deserved. I know I'm not the man you chose. But these past months, watching you with James, seeing your strength and determination, I've fallen in love with you. Joanna stared at him, speechless. Of all the things she'd expected him to say, this wasn't among them. You don't need to answer now, Adam added when she remained silent. It's a lot to consider. I just wanted you to know how I feel. Joanna found her voice at last. Why now? Adam's gaze was steady. Because I can't keep pretending that I don't want more than this arrangement. Because every morning when I see you at breakfast, every evening when we sit together after James is asleep, I want to call you my wife in truth, not just in name. I don't know what to say, Joanna admitted. Say you'll think about it, Adam suggested. That's all I ask for now. Joanna nodded slowly. I'll think about it. That night, as she lay in her bed with James sleeping peacefully in his cradle nearby, Joanna examined her feelings for Adam Xanthos. He'd been nothing but kind and respectful since the day he'd bought her contract. He'd given her his name, his protection, his home. He'd accepted James as his own without hesitation. But did she love him? The question was more complicated than it seemed. She'd married Thomas for love, or what she'd thought was love. Youthful infatuation, perhaps. Excitement at his daring plans and charming ways. That had led to heartbreak and near disaster. What she felt for Adam was different respect, gratitude, admiration. A growing fondness that had deepened with each passing day. The way her heart quickened when he entered a room. The comfort she found in his presence. Was that love? In the morning, Joanna woke to find Adam already gone, having left at dawn to help with a difficult calving. She spent the day considering his words, watching for his return from the window as she went about her tasks. It was nearly sunset when she spotted him riding back toward the house, his tall figure silhouetted against the dying light. Joanna handed James to Rose and went out to meet him at the corral. Adam dismounted wearily, handing the reins to one of the hands. When he saw Joanna waiting, his face brightened despite his obvious fatigue. "You're a sight for sore eyes," he greeted her. "You look exhausted," Joanna observed. "Was it a difficult birth?" Adam nodded, falling into step beside her as they walked toward the house. "Breech presentation? We almost lost both cow and calf, but they pulled through." "A happy ending?" "Then," Joanna said. "The best kind." Adam glanced at her. "Where's James?" "With Rose. I wanted to speak with you privately." Adam's steps faltered slightly. "About what I said last night?" "Yes." Joanna stopped walking, turning to face him fully. The setting sun cast a golden glow over the ranch, bathing them both in warm light. "I've been thinking about it all day." Adam waited, his expression guarded but hopeful. "When you bought my contract," Joanna began, "I thought you wanted something from me, something beyond what you were admitting. I couldn't believe someone would offer marriage without expecting something in return." "I understand why you'd think that," Adam said quietly. "But you never asked for anything," Joanna continued. "You gave me a home, security for my child, your name. You've been patient and kind and respectful." She took a deep breath. "I didn't come to this marriage looking for love. I was just trying to survive." Adam's face fell slightly, but he nodded in acceptance. "But sometimes," Joanna went on, her voice growing stronger, "life gives us what we need rather than what we're looking for." Hope flickered in Adam's eyes. "What are you saying, Joanna?" "I'm saying that I care for you too, Adam. I don't know if what I feel is love, yet I'm still learning who you truly are, and who I am now, in this new life. But I want to find out." She reached for his hand. "I want to try to make this a real marriage." The joy that spread across Adam's face was like sunrise breaking over the mountains. "Are you sure?" "I'm sure," Joanna confirmed. "You've been a father to James in every way that matters. You've been patient with me, given me time and space to heal. I want to be a true wife to you, Adam, if you'll still have me." In answer, Adam drew her gently into his arms. "May I kiss you, Joanna Xanthos?" "Please," she whispered. His lips met hers in a kiss that was tender, yet filled with promise, the beginning of something new and precious between them. When they parted, Joanna stayed within the circle of his arms, feeling for the first time that she truly belonged there. "We should get back," Adam murmured after a moment. "Rose will wonder what's become of us." Hand in hand, they walked back to the house that had become Joanna's home, not just a shelter or a refuge, but a place where her heart had unexpectedly found its mooring. That night, after James was settled, Joanna moved her belongings to the master bedroom. Their first night together as true husband and wife was tender and unhurried, a gentle exploration of newfound intimacy. "I never expected this," Joanna confessed as they lay together afterward, her head resting on Adam's chest. "When I stood on that auction block, I thought my life was over. Instead, it was just beginning." Adam's arms tightened around her. "For both of us. You gave me a family, Joanna, something I'd given up hope of ever having." The weeks and months that followed were a time of deepening bonds and new discoveries. Joanna learned that Adam sang softly to himself when he thought no one was listening, that he had a weakness for apple pie, that he still had nightmares about his sister's death all those years ago. Adam discovered Joanna's quick wit, her talent for sketching, her fierce determination to master any skill she set her mind to. James grew stronger and more curious each day, his dark eyes taking in the world around him with wonder. He began to smile, then laugh, his first real laugh coming when Adam tossed him gently in the air one evening. The look of pure joy on Adam's face had brought tears to Joanna's eyes. By James's first birthday, no one in Cherry Creek would have guessed that the Xanthos family had come together through such unusual circumstances. They were simply Adam and Joanna Xanthos, respected ranchers with a handsome young son and a thriving business. The celebration for James's birthday brought neighbors from miles around. As Joanna watched Adam showing their son to the assembled guests, pride evident in every line of his body, Rose appeared at her side. "Who would have thought?" the older woman mused, following Joanna's gaze. "A year ago, that man was the loneliest soul I'd ever met. Now look at him." "He saved us," Joanna said softly. Rose shook her head. "You saved each other, if you ask me. And that's the best kind of love story there is." Later that night, after the guests had departed and James was sleeping peacefully in his crib, Joanna and Adam sat on their porch, watching the stars emerge in the vast Colorado sky. "I have something to tell you," Joanna said, her voice both nervous and excited. "I wasn't sure until today, but now I am." Adam turned to her, eyebrows raised in question. "We're going to have another baby," Joanna announced. "Around Christmas, Dr. Mitchell thinks." Adam's face transformed with wonder. "Another child? Truly?" Joanna nodded, laughing as he swept her into an embrace. "Are you happy?" she asked when he finally released her. "Beyond words," Adam assured her, his eyes shining in the moonlight. "A year ago, I was alone. Now I have a wife I adore, a son who amazes me daily, and another child on the way." He shook his head in wonder. "I saw you on that auction block, and something told me to act. I never imagined how completely that decision would change my life." "Our lives," Joanna corrected gently, leaning her head against his shoulder. "Sometimes the most unexpected beginnings lead to the most beautiful journeys." Adam kissed the top of her head. "And this is just the beginning of ours." As they sat together under the star-filled sky, Joanna thought about the path that had brought her here, the sorrows and struggles, the fear and uncertainty. All of it had led to this moment, this man, this life that she now cherished above all else. Sometimes, she reflected, salvation came in the most unexpected forms. For her, it had come in the form of a quiet, honorable man who had seen her value when she stood on an auction block, heavily pregnant and afraid. He had offered his name then, as a shield. She had accepted it as a necessity. Now she carried that name with pride and love, a testament to the family they had forged together from the most unlikely beginning. Their daughter, Sarah Rose Xanthos, arrived 2 days before Christmas, a perfect gift, with her father's blonde hair and her mother's determined spirit. James, now a sturdy toddler, regarded his baby sister with solemn curiosity before declaring in one of his first complete sentences, "My baby." Adam laughed. ruffling his son's dark curls. "Yes, son, your sister, our family." As the years passed, the Xanthos ranch prospered and grew. Adam and Joanna added another 200 acres to their holdings when the neighboring property came up for sale. They built a larger house to accommodate their growing family, though they kept the original homestead where their journey together had begun. James grew into a thoughtful, responsible young man with a natural affinity for ranching and a protective streak toward his younger siblings. Sarah developed her mother's artistic talents and her father's head for business. 2 more children followed Michael, with his father's quiet strength, and Emma, the youngest, who combined her mother's determination with her father's gentle heart. On their 20th wedding anniversary, Adam surprised Joanna with a trip to San Francisco, something she had long wished to see but never had the opportunity to visit. 20 years, Joanna marveled as they stood on the deck of the ferry crossing San Francisco Bay, the wind tossing her hair. "Sometimes it feels like yesterday that I stood on that auction block. And sometimes it feels like you've always been by my side," Adam replied, his arms secure around her waist. Though time had silvered his temples and added lines to his face, his eyes still held the same warmth when they looked at her. "Any regrets?" Joanna asked. Adam shook his head. "Not a single one. You?" Joanna smiled up at the man who had been her rescuer, her husband, her partner, her love. "Only that I didn't tell you I loved you sooner." Adam laughed, drawing her closer. "We had time. We still do." That evening, in their hotel room overlooking the bay, Adam presented Joanna with a small wooden box. Inside was a locket containing miniature portraits of their 4 children. "To remind you," he said as he fastened it around her neck, "of the family we built together." Joanna touched the locket, tears in her eyes. "I never need reminding. They're in my heart always, as are you." When they returned to Cherry Creek, the ranch was thriving under James's temporary management. At 21, he had his father's business acumen and his mother's practical nature, a combination that served him well. Sarah, at 19, was being courted by the son of a neighboring rancher, a young man who looked at her with the same admiration Adam still showed Joanna. Life continued to unfold with its joys and sorrows, its challenges and triumphs. The Xanthos family weathered droughts and blizzards, market fluctuations and political changes. Through it all, Adam and Joanna remained each other's constant, the foundation upon which their family and their legacy was built. On quiet evenings, they still sat together on the porch, watching the sunset paint the Colorado sky in brilliant hues of orange and gold. Sometimes they spoke of the day's events or their plans for the future. Other times they simply sat in comfortable silence, their hands linked, no words needed between them. And if sometimes Joanna reflected on how close she had come to a very different fate, how a single moment, a single decision by a stranger had altered the course of her life so completely, she did so with gratitude rather than fear. For from that desperate hour on an auction block had come a lifetime of love, security, and joy she could never have imagined possible. "Penny for your thoughts," Adam said one such evening as the first stars began to appear in the darkening sky. Joanna smiled, leaning her head against his shoulder. "I was thinking about beginnings, and how sometimes they look like endings until you've lived enough of the story to understand the difference." Adam nodded, understanding as he always did. "Our beginning was unusual, to say the least. But our story has been beautiful," Joanna finished, "and it's still being written, every day." As if in agreement, a shooting star blazed briefly across the Colorado sky, a moment of brilliance marking the vastness of possibilities still to come.